Welcome everyone to this dissertation seminar. I'm presenting my findings of my dissertation titled Land Cover Change and its Implications for Ecosystem Services in the Greater Shawnee National Forest. I'm grateful for your encouragement, support, and being part of this moment. The biophysical material that are present in the surface of the earth, such as forest, agriculture, and wetland, etc., are called land use land cover. Land cover forms the foundation for sustainability by providing the essential natural resources and ecosystem services upon which social structure, environmental health, and economic systems depend on. So going forward, the only way to achieve sustainability is through policies, strategies of policies and managing land use land cover in a sustainable way. So that's the only way we can achieve the sustainability, because in an era of climate change, if we want to achieve sustainability, this is the way. There are multiple drivers of land use land cover change, from local to global level, ranging from biophysical drivers to socioeconomic drivers, different policies like taxes and all, of which human and climate are major drivers to drive these changes. These drivers act independently or collectively to change landscape, creating fragmentations such as patches or corridors and or matrix that impact the continuity of land cover and ecosystem integrity. In a figure on the right, you can see there are patches of lands. Patches means a non-linear area with a homogeneous environment condition, but differing from the surroundings. So these fragmentations would decrease ecosystem services and ecosystem viability, and overall it would impact the animal or even energy flow from one patches to other. So we don't want this kind of landscape if we want a sustainability in the future. Land use land cover is associated with different ecosystems and ecosystem services they provide, directly or indirectly contributing to human well-beings. There are 4 types as shown in the figure: supporting services, provisioning services, regulating services, and cultural services. All of these services interact with each other, and through these services, all the living beings, not only human beings, all the living beings benefits from it and receive benefit from it. But today I will not be focusing on all of these different kinds of ecosystem services. So I'll be mostly talking about 2 supporting ecosystem services: carbon stock and habitat quality. Carbon stock is a quantity of carbon held in a specific area and time. And the habitat quality here is the ability of an ecosystem to provide shelter for this food and shelter for the species. Land use land cover is so associated that as one land cover changes or modifies for another, its related ecosystem services changes. Most of the time, negative or decreasing in services, both in quality and quantity. In the figure, you can see if you move from dense forest to a high-density urban area, in a high-density forest, you will have a range of services that you will get. And as you move from far away from it, you'll see the declining trend of those services. Climate change and various other drivers, as explained in earlier slides, influences land use land cover change and intensifies the stress on ecosystem and ecosystem services. Human is the only actor that can act on those things. What I mean is human are the only factors that can respond to these stresses through mitigation, adaptation or through policy formation, helping this land use land cover transition for a betterment of the society and environment. For example, if human society or certain actors feel the ecosystem is degrading, they can work on it to transition towards a better ecosystem following some restorations or other work. For example, in Southern Illinois, there's a program constituted by USFS called Let the Sunshine In, which has a program particularly in Southern Illinois that clears up the forest understories, burn forest and thinning and so forth to provide room for oak and hickory regeneration. So that's kind of transitions would be good for ecosystem and ecosystem services. There are so many theories how such transition occurs, and one of them is a forest transition theory, which suggests temporal turnaround from net forest area decrease to forest area recover or increase, driven by socioeconomic changes and environmental policy. Based on that theory of framework was developed as shown in the figure, where fast transition occurs during early development phase, slows down when intervened by different actors and policies, and ultimately, in this case, forest recovers, or it has a trade-off relationship between other land use types such as agriculture or urban area and so forth. So this theory aids in evaluating land cover change and ecosystem services by providing a framework to understand the socioeconomic and policy drivers behind the shift from deforestation to forest recovery. As we have discussed the theoretical backgrounds of land use, land cover, and changes, ecosystem services, and their implication for ecosystem services, let's now zoom into the Greater Shawnee National Forest in Illinois, a region that is a part of coastal plain ecosystem as a result of Gulf of Mexico through Mississippi River and prehistoric glaciation from the north, which has like varied landscapes and environmental metrics, making it an ideal case study for this dissertation. So in the northern part, it's mostly dominant of agriculture, and in the Mississippi Plain also there's a like dominant agriculture, but mostly covered by forest. Average temperature range between is 14.5 degrees centigrade, and precipitation around 1140 millimeter, and average elevation is around 180 meters. There are three different objectives of this dissertation: to assess the spatio-temporal land use land cover change of the Greater Shawnee National Forest and understand land use land cover change in the context of forest transition framework. Second objective is to assess the spatio-temporal pattern of terrestrial carbon stock, determine what resolution and carbon model best fits available FIA data, and to understand the spatio-temporal distribution of habitat quality, distribution of keystone wildlife species, and its relationship to fragmentation. For the first objective, we asked two questions: what is the trend of land use land cover, and how does long-term climate affect land use land cover, particularly in forest cover in the Greater Shawnee National Forest area? And the other question we asked was, do forest cover changes follow the forest transition framework? The hypothesis here is the land use land cover change is slowing down in the Greater Shawnee National Forest, consistent with national trend documented in previous research, and we also hypothesize that climate change significantly influences this deceleration. So there are many risks. There are overall throughout the U.S. there's a forest is recovering, and there are like deceleration of land use land cover change overall. So we wanted to check whether this is true in Greater Shawnee National Forest area. For this objective, I use suite of data set, primarily Landsat data, all the bands of Landsat data, different vegetation and soil indices produced from this Landsat data, topography, which is like elevation aspects and exposures, population, precipitation, and temperature were primarily used for prediction for 2050, and precipitation and temperature were acquired from CMIP6, which is a product of IPCC based climate scenario. So there are the data are tier 1 and tier 2. In my case, I only use tier 2 for SSP4. So SSP1 or SSP-RCP1 is a carbon emission to 0 by 2100 and other GHGs by half the level of 2020. So these are the assumptions or narratives that are in the climate scenario. So SSP2 or SSP-RCP2, its carbon emission starts declining by 2045 and gets roughly half of the levels of 2050 by 2100. SSP3 and SSP4, these are more optimistic or middle of the path scenario between two extremes where you have like continuous carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases increase or decline at certain points. SSP5 is like continue to rise throughout the 21st century. So there's no mediations of the climate change. But it is also called as a business as usual scenario. So we don't do anything. The map on the right side is the area where I and some of my former lab members went in the forest area, agriculture, wetlands, and so forth to gather a ground truth point for classification of my land use land cover. And these data sources were from USGS. The climate data was from ESGF, and other supplementary data like topography and road networks were collected from Illinois Clearinghouse. For this objective, two distinct methods were used. First, initially to classify the land use land cover, I used random forest model. The data used were all the vegetation indices, Landsat bands, and topography, which is slope aspects and elevation. I used random forest model for this classification. Random forest is an ensemble machine learning algorithm that combines multiple decision trees. So if you are familiar with a decision tree, it's a combination of decision trees. And it selects based on a majority rule. It has like you can define number of trees decision trees you want, and when the model is done training, it will select the majority rule. Uses a majority rule and selects the carbon classification. For prediction for 2050, I use land change modeler, which is an independent program developed by Idrisi in Clark University. It uses multi-layered layered perceptual neural network, which is also a machine learning algorithm that works on a feed-forward artificial neural network system that includes multiple layers of neuron with non-layer activation functions. What that means is you put in multiple inputs, one or more hidden layers of in between, and every input you put will link with multiple hidden layers you define and gives you an output. So each neuron layer is connected to every neuron in the following layer, forming a densely connected structure. And this was used to calculate the transition metrics. So what land changes to what categories between the year provided 1990 and 2010. After that, I use a Markov chain model, which is like a sequence. It's a mathematical tool that uses a sequence of possible events in which the probability of each event depends only on the state attained in the previous event. So meaning future states are dependent of the past state except for the current state. So it takes into account the immediate past, and based on that past, it'll predict for the future. Initially, I did it for 2019 because we wanted to validate the model, whether it performs well or not, because we already have like 2019 classified land cover from random forest, which had an accuracy of around 95%. So we validate the model after we attend like acceptable amount of accuracy predicted for 2050. The accuracy, the land use land cover classification accuracy ranges between 92 to 95% with kappa statistics between 0.89 to 0.94. In the figure, you can see changes from one land cover to other over the years, and over the years, you cannot distinguish through this map the changes between years because of the scale issue. You cannot see every changes in the pixel. So the middle panel is a snapshot of the area that changed between years. Overall, there was around 39% of forest, 28% of agriculture. Agriculture, hay grass pasture was about 18%, and remaining land cover were constituted about 15%. Those were mostly wetlands, water built up areas, and so forth. The land use land cover changed variably between the study periods. Between 1990 and 2019, overall forest cover increased with a slight decrease in evergreen forest. Figure Sankey diagram, you can see a thin network lines between the years indicate the amount of change is very low. Very low between the years, mostly dynamics happening between agriculture and grasslands and some deciduous forest. But this indicates a very slow change, particularly after 2001. This was also seen during the intensity analysis. I performed a separate intensity analysis to see whether this land cover changes are fast, slow, or stable. So the analysis showed somewhat stable to slow change in the Greater Shawnee National Forest. When climate change based temperature and precipitation were induced in the prediction model, the land use land cover changed drastically, particularly in forest cover. Regardless of the scenario that I introduced earlier, SSB1 to SSB5. Built up land, water, hay, grass, pasture increased, but overall forest decrease, but deciduous forest suffered the most, which is detrimental to the ecosystem of the Greater Shawnee National Forest because of its long history of oak hickory dominant forest. Oak hickory, if you are familiar with the area, the majority of the forest cover is oak and hickory. So many research also show that we are already seeing impact of climate change in the forest area because of mesofication. The forest and the oak hickory forest requires like a certain disturbance such as fire and other that has been not been done properly in recent years. So providing a room for other mesophytic species like red maple, ash, and other species, which is not very good for the ecosystem that has been here for more than 3,500 years. So the accuracy of the model was between 78 and 81%, and the kappa statistics was around 0.76 to 0.81. When the land use land cover of Greater Shawnee National Forest is tested against the forest transition framework, it clearly follows the technical narrative of forest transition theory. We can clearly see the decline of forest and incline of everything else during pre-development phase, and when different actors intervene, the changes slow down, leading to a slight recovery of forest. I particularly divided this pre-development phase as a pre-2000 and post-2000. We didn't have like so many data points. You can see the original framework has like a curve looking, but because we didn't have like enough data points to show exact similar, but it follows the narrative of the theory. The regression analysis. So if you see the slopes of different over the air, you'll see the recovery in forest, still slight increment in agriculture. The population is slight decreased, and you can see the economy, which I measure in form of median household income, has gone up. So gone up. It follows the narratives, but the recovery may not be as straightforward or possible if we do not devise a mitigation strategy for climate change. Climate change. If you remember the earlier maps, we are seeing forest declining regardless of the scenario, overall forest cover. So if that happens and we do not mitigate, this is not the scenario we want. For objective one, the conclusions were the land use land cover change is relatively slowing down in recent years. The land use land cover change in the Greater Shawnee National Forest area adheres to the forest recovery adheres to the forest transition framework, where the forest recovery occurs alongside a slowdown in agricultural land expansion and a decline in population and economic growth. Early response is essential to mitigate these impacts, and as climate change may significantly alter the trajectory of land use land cover change. Future research in this area is to integrate or modify forest transition framework to capture the quality of forest recovery. So the model as is does not capture the quality of it. It can give you whether the forest recovered or lost, but it won't tell you what quality of is forest. For example, we want oak hickory to be to increase in Greater Shawnee National Forest, but if because of the mesification, we are seeing a lot in many areas the dominant mesophytic species such as red maple and beeches and so forth. So we don't want that. So if we be able to tweak the model to capture those kind of quality, it'll be very good research to do. Another is the role of local, state, and federal government policies in slowing down of land use land cover change. But as far as I know, there's no particular research in this area. I mean, there's no one law or policy that impacts this land use land cover. There's there must be like series of, but we don't know which one has the highest role. So that would be another interesting research to conduct in this area. This paper, I am planning to send it to the Journal of Land Use Science. For objective 2, we asked 3 questions. What are the temporal and spatial pattern of carbon stock based on land use land cover in the Greater Shawnee National Forest? What model and resolution best fits the FIA-based data? And what is the trend of carbon stock by land use land cover type? The hypothesis here is the temporal and spatial pattern of carbon stock in the Greater Shawnee National Forest are influenced by changes in land use land cover. The data used to acquire these objectives are Landsat bands, its indices, and FIA plot-based carbon stock. So in the middle panel, you see a sample of different indices. And these are not only the indices I use around 26, 27 different indices for the model. Modeled on the right panel, it's a layout of a inventory plot by a USFS. So USFS collect forest inventory data based on this plot. Plot level estimates of carbon stocks are a combination of empirically measured tree site attributes such as DBH, heights, and so forth. It is a combination of forest floor, dead trees, woods, soil organic carbons, and so forth. So the basic layout of the plot is, as you say, there's a central plot. Its plot is divided into three different macro plot, subplot, and micro plot, each for different purposes. You have like big trees and saplings, and then seedlings and other were collected in a micro plot. So each plot is around 37, 38 meters apart from the central plot. So the central plot is at some certain degree from surrounded by three or more plots in the area. So because we wanted to test whether the FIA-based data, which resolution best fit the FIA-based data. Initially, what we needed to do is we had like 30-meter resolution data of Landsat and all the indices, and that needed to be converted to 60 and 90 meters. So I used a cubic convolution method to resample those data. And all of those data were fed into different regression models and INVEST model to quantify the carbon. So stepwise regression, I've used bidirectional stepwise regression, which successively adds or removes variable based solely on statistical significance of their estimated coefficient. So it starts with forward selection and then backward removal. So the model starts with 0, adds variables, and then if some of the variables does not perform well for the model, it removes from the model. So that kind of regression, bidirectional regression was used. Support vector machine was, which is a supervised machine learning algorithm used for classification and regression. It finds a hyperplane and classifies the data based on those hyperplane into different classes. So based on those classes, in this case, a regression was made and a relationship was made and quantified the carbon. For random forest, as I explained earlier, is a combination of different decision trees model. This INVEST model is very different from all of these regression models. All of these regression models would take multiple predictor variables, but INVEST model only uses land use land cover map and its related carbon value. For example, it uses different published values of land use carbon stocks. For example, a single value for deciduous forest or evergreen forest. So it's a very different but very simple model compared to all of these three models. Initially, we compared three regression-based model, stepwise regression, support vector machine, and random forest model. Among all of this model, stepwise regression performed the least, followed by support vector machine and random forest. If you see all these models based on RMSE and R-square, in every model, 90-meter resolution performed better. Better than other 30 and 60 meters. So So we decided that the best model for quantifying carbon in Greater Shawnee National Forest is random forest, and the resolution is 90 meters. Since the INVEST model was not directly comparable to this regression model, and we found out that the random forest model was the best among these three regression models. We compared if there is a significant difference between the mean carbon stock per hectare by land use land cover type. I used ANOVA model, and the results showed that the model itself is significantly different. There's no significant difference between resolution, and there's no interaction between model and resolution. And since we knew the model is significantly different, we didn't know which model among those four models. So I ran a Tukey test for a comparative analysis, and the Tukey test showed the INVEST model is significantly different and has a higher mean per hectare by land use land class type compared to other models, and all other three models are not significantly different from each other. This kind of result was expected because, as I explained earlier, the INVEST is a very simple model. We won't account for the carbon dynamics within the forest types, or within an agricultural area, or within a land cover. You fit with a single value, so yeah, so it will either under predict or over predict. In our case, it over predicted. Because the 90-meter resolution with a random forest model was best, we only chose to show this model as a result. So if you see, most high density carbon per hectare were found mostly in deciduous forest, followed by other forest type, ranging from 17 megagram per hectare to as many as 207 or 197 megagram per hectare. In most of the land use land cover types, the carbon stock was somewhat stable to slight change, but there's a clear indication of increased carbon in a deciduous forest area. In a graph, you can, but I only used 90-meter resolution because this was the best model we had. So you can clearly see the trend of deciduous forest. It constitutes around 50–51%, and it's like in an increasing trend. The conclusion of this objective was the carbon stock varied between 107 to 207 megagram per hectare, depending upon the area or land use land cover type, and highest carbon stock was found in deciduous forest. The carbon stock in deciduous forest show clear indication of increasing trend, but not other land use land cover types between 1990 and 2019. And the random forest model best predicted carbon stock at 90-meter resolution for all years. The future research in this area is maybe data fusion, such as Sentinel with Landsat or SAR with Landsat, to see if the prediction models behaves differently. Another very interesting result would be research would be quantification of carbon stock and its accumulation potential based on stand aids. We have like different aids and stand structure in southern Greater Shawnee National Forest. So if we are able to parse by this stand types, we'd be able to know because in general the old aged forest has a low capacity to low capacity of sequestering carbon than the middle-aged or young forest. So it will be very helpful for those person doing carbon cost and other things, and it would particularly would be helpful for forest managers. This the result of these objectives, I'm intending to send it to trees, forest, and people, or innovation and green development. One of these two journals. The third objective, and we asked question like, what are the special patterns, special temporal patterns of habitat quality, fragmentation, and bobcat distribution of terrestrial ecosystem in the Greater Shawnee National Forest area? The hypothesis was habitat quality, fragmentation, and bobcat distribution are interrelated and mutually influence each other in the area. If you remember the land use land cover since 1900s in the Shawnee National Forest area, the Greater Shawnee National Forest area, there are like almost 85% of forest and very few agricultural land. They did not even classify as agriculture, they call it cultural or some kind of classifications. And there overall in Illinois, there's like from 1900s to now, more than 80% of forest and prairie are lost. So bobcat had a similar fate. It was abundant pre-European settlement and was almost extirpated mid-1900s. And then again, it came back and was again listed to threatened between 1977 and 1999. Because it was listed as threatened, it again came back, and since now it has like abundant population, and the government started providing permit for its harvest since 2016. The data I use for this objective are land use land cover, bobcat distribution topography, which is elevation aspects and exposure, roads, railroads, electric stations, even the electric line cuts in the forest. Those kind of data were also used in this. The data, bobcat data was compiled from published literature between 1983 and 2022. We also wanted to see whether this there is a substantially difference in the ecosystem services and other habitat quality ecosystem services and bobcat distribution between resolution. We did similar as objective 2. We resampled the data into 60 and 90 meters using cubic convolution, and each of these data were fed into INVEST model, Maxent model, and FragStat model. INVEST model, it calculates it provides you a habitat score 0 to 1 based on the threats you provide for the species. For example, it calculates. We have to define the threats. For in this case, one example will be urban area, because it is not a good habitat for bobcat. So the threat and the sensitivity of that urban area to bobcat. It would calculate the score based on distance decay function and give it a score. You can also input like home range of bobcats and so forth in the model. Maxent model is again is based on principle of maximum entropy. It predicts species distribution by estimating the broadest probability distribution across landscape using like presence data and different environmental variables or the predictor variables. In this case, different vegetation indices, land use, land cover, topography, all were predictor variables for the bobcat distribution. A FragStat model, it only uses land use, land cover data and quantifies landscape pattern metrics from the data based on the homogeneity, and it calculates based on like moving window average, moving window average, or even with the neighborhood windows, which move across a large landscape, and so it gives you a different indices of fragmentation. The bobcat population, the average bobcat distribution probability score in the Grand-Forks area increased regardless of the resolution. The increase was, not that much, it's around 2%. So we are not sure if this change is significant. So we ran a ANOVA model to see if there's a significant change. The model showed that there's a significant change between years, and there's no significance of resolution or interaction between year and resolution. This is a map for spatial distribution of bobcat, mostly seen in a forested area, followed by some in agricultural area. Well, different literature also suggests that bobcat likes dense forest over other land use type, because the ANOVA model shows year significance. There's no significance between the resolution, so we chose the best model based on AUC value. So the AUC value showed 30-meter resolution was the best to predict the bobcat distribution. The AUC value ranged between 0.8 to 82 on the training, and 0.72 to 74 on test. So this is a this level of accuracy is good to very good category. So category in predicting the bobcat distribution. So most of this distribution were explained by land use, land cover, NDVI, around 70 to 80%, and others like precipitation, elevation also played a small role on prediction. There is no role for, I also use hiking trails as a barrier, but it had no role on the model. The habitat quality decreased regardless of the resolution from 0.72 to 0.68 or 0.69. The change was very small cross resolution, so we wanted to test whether this is significant. And the ANOVA model showed that both year and resolution are significant in this case. This is a spatial distribution of habitat quality because we wanted to compare the bobcat distribution with the habitat quality and fragmentation. We only use 30-meter resolutions for further analysis. The most high quality habitat was on deciduous forest. The agriculture are also a moderate habitat quality for bobcat because we did not provide agricultural area as a threat for the species. Several research suggests that nearly 30% of at least female bobcats spend their time in agriculture area or wetlands searching for food and other daily for a day-to-day basis. So agriculture was also a kind of moderate kind of habitat for bobcat. So regardless of the resolution, the habitat quality decreased between the years. So I also categorize very high quality to low quality habitat quality. So the interesting part is the deciduous forest is increasing, slightly increasing, but if you see the most high quality habitat quality, which is deciduous forest and other forest type, it decreased from 1990 to 2019, nearly about 5%. So this is concerning, and this may be because of the fragmentation of the forest, or maybe because of climate change and other factors that's playing a role for habitat quality degradation. I use FragStat for this fragmentation. I use set of 120 landscape label and 115 class label matrices to explain the fragmentation. The landscape label gives you a single value over the entire area, whereas the class label gives you the value based on your land cover type. Because it's daunting task to go through every landscape. Is around 215, so it's very hard to go through every explaining variable. So I use a PCA to identify key indices. There I acquired like around 5 from landscape and 5 from class level matrices to explain the fragmentation. This is a snapshot of the table where your patch density is increasing, age density is increasing, and mean area of the patches are also in the similar line, indicating that the forest is the land use land cover is fragmenting in the Greater Shawnee National Forest. So high fragmentation on deciduous forest, evergreen forest, and wetland, and relatively low fragmentation on agriculture, mixed forest, and shrub classes. To test the relationship between habitat quality and bobcat distribution, I use 2 separate regression models. Initially, habitat quality with the fragmentation indices, and then bobcat distribution with the habitat quality and fragmentation. So the habitat quality, the initial test of habitat quality with fragmentation showed significant relationship, explaining a variation about 0.57 in the model. What that suggests is an increase in the homogeneous landscape increases habitat quality, thereby increasing connectivity among habitat patches. The other regression model, which suggests that the bobcat distribution is dependent on your habitat quality and fragmentation. So the model explained about 71% of variation, better habitat quality and landscape connectivity associated with higher probability score of bobcat occurrence and distribution. The conclusion of this objective is the Maxent model showed that the bobcat distribution increased in the Greater Shawnee National Forest between 1990 and 2019, regardless of the resolution. The habitat quality of the Greater Shawnee National Forest decreased between 1990 and 2019, despite the increase in forest density, regardless of the resolution. So most importantly, high habitat quality decreased by about 5%. The analysis also showed that the habitat quality fragmentation and bobcat distribution are interrelated and mutually influence each other in the Greater Shawnee National Forest area. The future research in this area would be integrating INVEST model with different models. For example, INVEST with the circuitscape, which is a model that calculates the connectivity between patches. It's based on circuit theory, so that you'll be able to know whether this habitat are connected based on the flow of the energy or the species. Another idea would be to integrate the INVEST models with SDMs, any species distribution models. And that would be a good research. Also, because this INVEST model uses threat and sensitivity analysis. One unexplored area would be using threat as providing NDVI or creating some indices that explains the threats and sensitivity of certain species, and creating that information in the model would be another good research in this area. I'm planning to send this to Journal of Landscape Ecology or GSPER. The application of this research in the future will be the land use land cover analysis is crucial for understanding how climate change affects forested regions and their provisions for ecosystem services, guiding the development of mitigation policies. Also, at our ecosystem services level, public awareness campaigns and citizen scientists should be involved to educate on the importance of fostering carbon stock and habitat quality through deforestation, sustainable land use land cover practices, and landscape management. That may be in a form of an educational workshop, roundtable discussion, or even employing citizen monitoring programs. I can give you one good example that is headed by Dr. Gibson, Plants of Concern program, where we utilize citizen scientists to track threatened and endangered species in southern Illinois. So similar things, similar models can be implied in tracking different ecosystem services or different forest types and other change going on in the area, in the Greater Shawnee National Forest. With this, my biggest thanks to my supervisors, Dr. Gibson and Dr. Lee, committee members, Dr. Holzmuller, Dr. Remo, and Dr. Wang. I am thankful to all the faculties and staff at ERNP program, Geography Department, and SIU Plant Biology program, particularly Becky in Plant Biology. She is so helpful. Laura in Geography, she is not with the department anymore, but she was very helpful. All the members from Gibson Lab and Lee Labs, Gibson Lab, few past members deserves a good shout out, like David, Shaw, Sian, who helped, Chris, and Travis, who helped me collect the data and going in the field together. It was a good experience and learning experience. With this, thank you.